Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back to my Facebook Live. My name is Jimmy Cheng. I'm a professional photographer, filmmaker, and an Olympus ambassador. So if you are new to my stream, this is all about photography, creative stuff, and especially Micro Four Thirds and Olympus, of course. Right, welcome back, and quite a few people has joined me already. And you can see that I have a specific topic to talk about today. Hopefully, it will be a little bit more educational, maybe a little bit of entertainment as well. But anyway, let's say hi to some people. Good morning, Dale, Mark. Chen Jiga, from Taiwan, I believe, and Stuart and Terry from Brisbane. Wow, excellent stuff. Cool, right, and let's get crack on because I want to really clarify a few things. Oh, Brad as well. Hello, good morning. So this is the topic of the day, aperture equivalence, and the reason I want to talk about this today is, I actually kind of talked about this many times in my previous videos and also my streams before, but it's shocking that there are still people ask me things, and especially there are a few messages that actually left in the YouTube live stream that I did about Olympus last week, and then subsequently this Wednesday, talking about aperture size. They are basically criticizing that the optics that we have is rubbish because the 1.2 isn't 1.2. I'm just saying it out loud for instance, and also the sensor size, and it's kind of all kinds of things. One person even gave me a very long paragraph, to kind of justify exactly what he meant. But let's clarify everything today. And let's get all clear. If you guys don't quite understand, maybe a little bit confused about things, hopefully I will be able to talk a little bit. I can't really demonstrate today because it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I may have to produce a video just dedicated on this particular topic, but let's leave it on for another day. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about it. And so hopefully that will somehow make the whole picture a little bit clearer in your mind about aperture sizes in Micro Four Thirds or any crop factors. All right, in fact, any format. Okay, and a few more people here: Remco, Roman, and Robin. Good morning. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about aperture. You guys probably know what aperture is. It's basically the little ring that opens up and down, and to allow to basically control the amount of light that will go into the sensor, right? It's this amount of light. Okay, this is the kind of like the key message here. So when people talked about crop stuff, and from full frame, because they always think full frame is the standard. Unfortunately, this is what people believe these days, but unfortunately it isn't the case. I think that if you talk to a lot of the genuine photographers out there, they would tell you that full frame is a format. It's a 35mm format, so it's medium format is another format, APS-C is another format, and Micro Four Thirds another format. It's not a standard, but that's how they believe things, which is kind of, to me, it's still a little bit annoying. But let's say, okay, I can forgive that. If they just don't understand photography or know photography long enough to kind of appreciate different formats. Okay, so that's one thing. And then a second is that let's use that as an argument. So let's say full frame is the standard. If f1 in full frame is f1, so everything else is going to have to calculate from there. So does that mean f1 in Micro Four Thirds is easier to calculate because it's a 2 times crop factor instead of 1.6, 1.5, so it's easier to calculate. So let's use Micro Four Thirds as an example. So does f1 in Micro Four Thirds means f2? Well, this is the argument now. This is what people are constantly talking about it. Oh, your 1.2 Pro lenses is not 1.2, it's 2.4. And then your 2.8 Pro lens is 5.6. I have to say that because I got a little bit frustrated. The reason is if you go to Google or YouTube, trying to find the latest, one of the latest DP reviews videos done by Chris, my beloved Chris and Jordan. I can't believe they actually said it. There's a specific video they were talking about Micro Four Thirds lenses, or I think they were saying that I would like these Micro Four Thirds lenses in the full frame. That's kind of like the message there. They wanted a slightly more compact, slower aperture that would bring down the size and affordability to full frame format. I think this is kind of like they're trying to push the message out to the public and to other consumers, saying that what Canon's recent announcement about the f11 lenses are a good thing. And so they are starting to utilize that influencing power that Tony is talking about. So I don't know. It's not for me to judge them, and but I think I don't mind that. If they want to push that message out, it's okay. But what they didn't do well is that they're starting to talk about micro four thirds lenses in the aperture equivalence terms. Okay, in the past they all talk about. Both Chris and Jordan always said, they're brilliant lenses, brilliant optics. The 1.2 is great. You can do low light because you can open up the aperture, suck up a lot more lights into the thing, which is actually a very cool thing to talk about because that's true. Like any fast lenses, any large aperture lenses, that's what they're designed for, to suck up as much light as possible. But instead of talking about that, they're starting to convert everything into the full frame equivalence. But what they didn't talk about or be more specific about is the light gathering capabilities. So because they try and I don't know how to explain this, but they use a few examples there and say, oh, I love these Olympus 12-100 f4 Pro. And this is one of my favorite lenses, blah 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 blah. I'll use it on my GH5 for filming. It's just a fantastic all-in-one. It's f4 aperture. But I would like to see a full frame lens. Would you like a 24-200 f8 lens? Hang on a second. f8 lens. Okay, that's two things there. You are constantly converting the aperture number, doubling it, and you give the false impression to a lot of people is that what we are using in the micro four thirds world, all the lenses that we have are basically lower, in terms of light gathering capabilities. So it's exactly what's happening around the world at the moment is that these people keep giving out kind of slightly incorrect information there and without clarification. I mean, I'm happy for them to refer it to that, but as long as they clarify that the f4 lens does have an f4 light capturing capabilities, because it is physics, and you can't really change that. And that's also a misconception for a lot of people who don't understand aperture sizes and in different formats. If an f1 lens in full frame and f1 lens in micro four thirds, they are still f1. There's no difference whatsoever. The only difference that you can argue is, of course, the depth of field, and that's the perspective compression ratios. That's probably different, because I can tell you that right now and why that is. So it's really frustrating to see people time and time again talking about this without any substance, and to me, they're just giving up false information out there and misdirect them into a totally different realm of in the photography. So to me, it's especially after watching DP reviews, that particular videos, and I was a little bit disappointed, to be quite frank, because I do respect Chris and Jordan, because they've done a really good job when they used to work for the camera store in Canada, and all the video so far has been very unbiased. I love their work. It's just quite entertaining to watch, especially Jordan when talk about video stuff. And but this particular video kind of struck me. Why would you keep referring everything that we have in the micro four thirds into doubling the aperture size? And all our lenses like the f4 300 f4 Pro, he actually praised that lens so much, but then he said that, we would like to have a 600 f8 lens in the full frame, but please, it's not an f8 lens. You really trying to confuse people here. So they all think that what we have here, the 300 f4 Pro, is basically an f8 lens. That's what he's suggesting, but isn't it true, right? You all know that the f4 lens is an f4 lens. You can quite argue that we can shoot the same ISO and same shutter speed because we have the same light gathering capabilities. Okay, the focal length could be different, the bokeh could be different, the compression could be different because the lens is different. But in terms of light exposure, is identical. And there's another guy who left a message in one of my YouTube videos saying, trying to justify, he actually did calculate a lot of stuff, which I completely ignore because I know that is completely incorrect. He even go as far as saying that the only reason that you can get an f4 exposure because the designer of the sensor in the micro four thirds sensor artificially boosts the signal in a sensitivity in the sensor. That's why you get more noise. Whoa, that is completely off my head there. That is totally not true either. You know, the reason we get slightly more noise compared to full frame is that because we have a higher pixel density in the sensor. You know, we all know that. You know, and if you see like Gerald Undone, you know, he's done really great videos on Micro Four Thirds, and you know, he talked about Micro Four Thirds. He talked about like the pixel densities, the noise to pixel ratios, and everything like that. It's really cool. But like, people just, I don't know where they get it from, and they're really trying to use mathematical formulas to prove it to me that I'm wrong. And but anyway, you know, like I didn't respond to that message because I know it's going to waste my time. It's going to waste my effort trying to respond to it, trying to argue, because I know that from the way he typed that message out, such a long paragraph with calculations and things, that he really believed, you know, what he said was right. So in that case, you know, it's really unfortunate. I cannot re-educate him. And then, you know, I'm not saying that full frame is this or that, or, you know, APS-C or Micro Four Thirds. Like I said, it's just a knowledge. But unfortunately, you take it the wrong way, and you take it completely the wrong directions, and there's nothing I can help, you know. And but anyway, this is so he believed that. Like I said, there are so many people out there now thinking that the full frame is the standard, and that's quite unfortunate to see. That to them, there is no other options out there. You know, you either use full frame, which is the best. You know, anything else is inferior to them. Yeah, I really can't understand it. But let's say how we got to think about that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about focal length as well in a minute. So I know a few people joined because I can hear the pop and noise from the headphones. I can see that a few more people has joined there. Good afternoon, Barana, and Mark, Jason, hello. Okay, there. Let's see what you guys think then. Roman saying people who think full frame is the holy grail have no money for medium format. But actually, I would like to have a full frame, a medium format. To be, you know, I do use medium format film cameras, and I have used a couple of times a medium format digital. You know, sometimes I like to try for some kind of fine art photos that I would like to do with medium format, which is kind of slightly different realm. But at the moment, I don't see the need to do that at the moment. Maybe in the future when I retire and when I try and explore some other things, and I might do that. Yeah, Brad, so it's not just if it's basic mathematics. It is true, you know, like the way they calculate it, these f-stop, they can't lie to you. And what I think the mistakes what Jordan and Chris made in the DP review videos is that if you consider based on what they said of the lenses aperture sizes, so like the 300 f4 Pro lens from the Olympus, if you want it to be equivalent, it's going to be 600 f8. You know, if you think like that, that's basically rubbish. You know, like the thing that you know them to review before, let's say some of the point and shoot cameras, you know, some of these bridge cameras have a 3/4 size sensors. Like if you think about those little sensors, that means that all those apertures 1.8, 2.8 that you previously reviewed, saying that they're good, they got 2.8 aperture, that means that they are equivalent of like a f56 in full frame. But it doesn't work like that. It does have a 2.8 light gathering capabilities. It's not f56. It isn't true. You know, and so that he actually got people confused when they watch it. You know, when I watch it, I just say, wow, hang on a second there, you're just a little bit untrue what you just said there. I think they really missed the message there. They should have talked about just a little bit, just a few sentences, saying that, you know, and the perceived rendering or the actual out of focus area is as double because of the crop factor, but in terms of light gathering capabilities is exactly the same. And if he clarified that, that's okay. But he didn't even mention a word about that, and everything just doubled. And then that's what kind of got me annoyed a little bit. So that's why I do this video today, and just to tell you a little bit about the aperture equivalence. In fact, there is no equivalence, and that's my message, because an f1 is f1, 1.2 is 1.2, regardless no matter how you look at it, it is what it is. An f2 lens that I'm using now is an f2 lens. So the difference really comes down to the focal length, the compressions, and also the depth of field, which is true. There will be the crop factor does come into the calculations there, because ultimately a 50 millimeters lens in full frame, yeah, is 50 millimeters, yeah. If you turn it to micro four thirds, it becomes 100 millimeters, but it's a cropped, yeah. And don't forget, it's a cropped. So what that means is, if you throw in at that a 100 millimeters lens, sorry, 50 millimeters lens into a micro four thirds body, it's still a 50 millimeters lens, but it's only cropping the center portion of it, because the actual circumference of the real elements is way bigger than the actual sensors itself. So what the sensor can actually see is just a little tiny little bit in the middle. So that's what the crop thing is coming. And so a lot of people say why the depth of field is so much shallower in the full frame compared to lesser sensors or smaller sensors like APS-C or the micro four thirds. Okay, a 25 millimeters in the micro four thirds, you know, what we call it because of the crop factor, is equivalent to a 50 millimeters in full frame. And so these two are supposed to be equal because we have the same perspective, so to speak. But in effect, if you look at it, the 25 millimeters lens is a 25 millimeter lens. So if you look at the 25 millimeter lens in a full frame and cropped, you got the exact same perspective, exact same compression, and exact same bokeh, the depth of field. There's no difference there. So 25 mm is a 25 millimeters. They just make it smaller and fit into a micro four thirds body. And so there is no difference in calculations there. And just because of the crop, they can make it smaller, lighter, and you know, so that's it. There's not very difficult to understand, but people really trying to scratch their head and trying to develop a lot of theories and mathematical formulas that completely doesn't make sense. They're reinventing the wheels that is already there for the last 100 years. And and I really can't understand why people go as far as that. But they really need to address that critically, not just for micro four thirds users, but for just general photographers out there. They seem to misunderstand these things altogether. Aperture, there's no equivalence there. Aperture is aperture. You know, f1 is f1, 1.2 is 1.2, 2.8 is 2.8. Come on, you know, it's not like that. When people say equivalence, it's only because they look slightly different. And but if you consider the actual focal length in the lens itself in the micro four thirds compared to the other formats, then you're starting to understand exactly what's going on there. Like I mentioned, if you throw in a 25 millimeters lens from a full frame to a micro four thirds, you know, it just basically acts like the normal 25 millimeter lens in native to the micro four thirds. Yeah, that's it, you know, and that's simple. I don't want to just go into it and trying to complicate everything else. So 25 is a 25 lens, no matter how you look at it. The 12 that I'm using now is a 12 lens. So there's no difference to a 12 millimeters in a full frame if they have one, and it's just using the center portion of the lens, and that's it. So it's simple. It's simple. Right, let's see how you guys think about this. And fake news era is the truth is only what you persistently shout the loudest. Yeah, I guess so. That's why there's so many protests these days. And they only hate you, but correct the wise that they will love you. Well, I know that a lot of people hate me for what I said last week, and I know this seriously. There are so many troll messages from the last Wednesday's YouTube video when I did the Olympus stuff and also the Canon stuff. They didn't really hear the whole story. I'm pretty sure they only saw the title, saw the thumbnail, and they already just left me a horrible message, and that's it. Because I actually, in the title, I said Canon scared, but they didn't really hear the story why Canon is scared. And in fact, if you look at it, you know, really consistently what's going on at the moment is that they are trying to get the people who want portability back from, they're trying to steal the market back from micro four thirds or APS-C for that matter, because we are smaller lenses, same as APS-C, they will be smaller compared to full frame, and they're trying to introduce these f11, f8 lenses just to try to get the size smaller. And what they are talking about now is in DP review is that it's okay to have f11 lenses, it's okay to have f8 lenses because they will be smaller. So it sounds to me that it's like a sales pitch to consumers. that whatever Canon's doing is great, and everybody else should follow. You know, like Nikon, you know, whatever. You know, they should do smaller aperture lenses or slower lenses. You know, I don't know. You know, like if you're given a choice, if really you're given a choice, would you buy an f11 lens? You know, and possibly still cost about $2,000. You know, from Canon and Nikon world. You know, you can imagine that if they are probably pro lenses, because what they will talk about is it's going to be weather sealed, it's going to be fully metal, almost like a pro grade lens, just with slower aperture. But would you spend $2,000 on an f11 lens? I wouldn't. You know, and I mean, people might. You know, but personally, I wouldn't. I mean, I would continue to use the f4 from the Olympus world or Panasonic. You know, I would use a smaller sensor, but have a genuine brighter lens so I can capture things faster. You know, that's how I would see it. And but anyway, this is what the message is about. You know, I really kind of dislike that video, and I usually will click like in the videos because I do like the presentations. Usually they're very informative, very unbiased. But that very video got me a little bit frustrated, just because the way they put it, and everything just doubling it, and then I don't like that at all. I mean, even though I'm pretty sure Chris knows that very well, you know, about the aperture sizes in terms of the differences, and but he didn't address that in that particular video, which is a downside, I think. But it's only my opinion, only my comment. So I didn't actually dislike their video. I didn't even leave a message over there, and I know that I saw a lot of comments already, so I don't want to get into a fist fight with all these people there. It is what it is. You know, they are a much bigger channel, and they are much more known in the photography world. So it's going to be difficult. It's an uphill battle for me if I want to talk a little bit sense to them. However, and I'm more known in the Micro Four Thirds world, so hopefully I can at least educate people that in the Micro Four Thirds world. Hopefully people take notes of it and not to worry too much about the aperture sizes or what people are consistently thinking about aperture equivalence, because there is no equivalence there. You know, aperture f1 is f1. Don't worry about what people say. It's not an f2 lens, for goodness sakes. You know, it's not that. Your 1.2 is a 1.2, not 2.4. Aesthetically, it may look like a 2.4, but in terms of light, you are getting a 1.2 aperture lens. So you are still sucking a lot of light into the little sensors in a Micro Four Thirds sensor. That's it. You are still sucking a lot of light in, and that's what you're paying for. Okay, let's see that. Remco is saying that the price and weight in full frame is double and more. Well, that's always the case, because they are using more material to start with. Because if you look at the whole overall lens construction, the most expensive elements isn't actually the metal stuff that you touch. Is the actual glass elements. They are very expensive, because when I went to the Leica factories a couple of years ago now in Germany, they told me some of the more exotic lens element could cost, just that tiny little glass would cost about 200 to 300 euro a piece. That is very expensive. You know, there are actually many different type of glasses there, because they all have different properties, different light transmission characters. So each one of them play an important part for designing things. Obviously, their coatings as well involving in the whole design. So, but that's what costs the most, not actually the barrel and things like that. Is purely the glass elements inside the lens. They are really costly to buy, and also you can imagine that, you know, they also have to be precisely polished to like 0.0001 millimeters. You know, like they have to be very, very precise, because these are optical designs, and you have to follow the blueprint that's been designed in the CAD file. And so this is very, very delicate procedures, and that's why you're paying for that particular thing. Not actually metal bill, weather seal. Is not that. That is actually very, very insignificant compared to the overall cost of the lens. So that's probably it. Okay, Terry, do you agree with this? If I take a 50 f4 lens on a full frame sensor, you should get the render and image the same as a 25 f4 lens on a Micro Four Thirds sensor, assuming that they have the same number of megapixel. No. In short, is no, because like I mentioned, it's a different lens. 50 millimeters is different to 25. If, let's say, if you have a 25mm f4 lens on a full frame, and let's say you have a, because like at the moment, the Micro Four Thirds is 20 megapixels, so let's say you have an 80 megapixel full frame, having a 25mm f4, snap a picture, crop the center bit out, which is equivalent to a 20 megapixel, and then and have it compare it with the 25mm on the Micro Four Thirds, you get an identical image. Yep. Because it's basically cropping a 25mm lens. And the reason I said that, because 50mm is a different focal length altogether. So you get a slightly different compression ratio between the subject and the background, because you know that you use a tele lens, you're basically compressing the whole scene together. You're bringing the background closer to the subject because of the compression, right? So a 50mm is longer than a 25mm. So you will get a little bit of a difference there, even though it may not be significant, but there is a difference there. So you won't get the same image as such. In terms of depth of field, possibly, but because of the compression that differences between the two lenses, you probably can't tell the actual the depth of field difference. So it's still kind of slightly different. So you can't really base on that. So the best thing is, if you really want to like drill into to the scientific side of it, get an 80 megapixel full frame and then use a 25mm lens, set it to f4, and compare to the 25 and f2 on the Micro Four Thirds, crop the full frame image to the 25mm, sorry, the actual the crop factor, which is kind of a quarter of it, and then you will find that the image should be the same as the Micro Four Thirds picture. And oh yeah. The medium format would be even worse, because it's 0.0. It's not times now. You know, it's kind of the other way around, because the format is bigger, and so it's always going to be a little bit harder to calculate. Especially there isn't a standard medium format digital sensor sizes. I mean, there are a couple of standards at the moment, but they were all slightly different. So it's going to be really hard to calculate. And so like you usually have a 50mm on the medium format is actually a wide angle. It's almost like a 35, so it's kind of like really different there. Okay, and Roman, the f11 lens will have the same quality as the Olympus 40 Euro body cap. Quite possibly. Like I said, you know, you're probably right. You know, because it's Canon, the people will still buy it. Say, "Ooh, it's Canon! Look, I can shoot at ISO 25,600 for the same shot. Who cares? I got no noise in those levels." I'm not entirely sure about that, mate. I'm not entirely sure. And Kai, hello there. And Micro Four Thirds will give you better depth of field on all aperture with nice bonus, faster shutter speed compared to full frame from from a happy Olympus visionary. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Yeah, it is. You know, I think people just really need to appreciate and just trying to understand the benefit of different sensors. Full stop. I don't know why now manufacturers, even the big boys like Canon, as I mentioned, you know, I'm not trying to talk down to them. You know, I respect Canon a lot. You know, they are innovators. The reason why they're so big is, you know, there's a reason for it. But the thing is, they are trying to invent something to trying to compensate their deficiencies. You know, like why would, you know, there's a big reasons why people started to abandon these mirror lenses. You know, remember those mirror lenses, the f8 mirror lenses? You know, they are like 500, 600, 800 mirror lenses. They are dirt cheap, but they get the ultra high reach. But people don't like them. There are two reasons of them. Second, first of all, is mostly manual focus. There's no autofocus options there. And then there is this horrible onion ring bokeh because of the design, the mirror thing. It's blocking the center part of the lens, so that's causing this ring bokeh. Then third is that is f8 or f11 lenses. They are very small, you know, and even you get the reach. People use long tele lenses are usually for wildlife, or for something you want to capture action. But for those lenses, it's just almost impossible to do it. So like you're now basically going back to those f11 lenses that people have abandoned for so long. And just because now you can shoot high ISO, so now you want to go back to it just because you can shoot high ISO. But technically, for any photographer, would you like to shoot ultra high ISO just because you can? And I think for people who actually appreciate photography, who wants to really get the maximum image quality, would know that you want to shoot as low ISO as possible, and that's fact. And that's why people has been criticizing at Micro Four Thirds that you can't shoot high ISO. But now you're shooting high ISO because you have an f11 lenses. That really doesn't make sense, though, does it? So this is kind of something that I believe is kind of weird in general, just like the whole thing. And now DP Review is basically Trump, agreeing the Canon's decision to have these f11 lenses and pushing consumer to believe that that's a good thing to do, and urging other manufacturing to follow suit. I think that's a wrong message altogether. Like the reason why people, in a lot of the photographers who jump into Micro Four Thirds is not just because, the portability side of it, is because, we can still capture a lot of stuff, as bigger format, just slightly lighter, slightly more portable, and slightly more affordable, and that's it. It is what it is. People can't afford to pay like $15,000 or whatever for a lens in the full frame. Now you're still bringing a $2,000 lens, but it's an f11. It just kind of really, I don't know. I lost that word now. It's just confusing. It's confused the whole photography world out there, but anyway. It is still a Canon. I'm pretty sure people will still buy when those two lenses come out. It's already on the roadmap. It's already kind of have a sneak peek in one of the latest R family lens catalog. So it's already showing there. So I'm pretty sure that it's going to come out. But anyway, I don't know. Even if one day I move back to Canon, let's say for hypothetically I move back to Canon, I definitely won't buy the f11 lenses for sure. Even if I cannot afford it, I still won't buy the f11 lens. I would rather just get another system that I can possibly afford those focal lengths in a slightly cheaper price. That's for sure. I'm not gonna get the f11 lens. Okay. I would get a f1 from Camland for €110, but not an f11 lens for Canon for €1,000. Yeah, I think so. It's just, don't you think it's a bit annoying? Where people, okay, Canon wanted to get a little bit back from that market. I understand that commercially, they want to make that decision. They want to create an f11 lens, which is supposedly going to be more portable, smaller, so that will fit in their R system, their mirrorless system, that looks more like a Micro Four Thirds system. That's a good way of putting it, right? They want to make it look like a Micro Four Thirds system because it's small. Right, that's what they want. So they hopefully they can tempt some of the buyers who are into the whether it's going to be APS-C or Micro Four Thirds users who are shooting wildlife, if those with those combinations, and move back to Canon because they now have a similar looking thing. Yeah, we have a small body, we have a small lens, but then if you look deeper, they're f11. You have to shoot like 12,800, 25,600 all the time. Even in bright daylight to get some shots. And it's going to be really, really weird. Okay, and okay, that's the invest in a lens. That's right hard. Okay, Robert Hugh, hello there. Maybe some rumors about full frame being inferior to medium format because of smaller size. Well, that's like just format differences, and there are people who already talk about the benefit of having medium format. Of course, they are tonality wise, they definitely have more color depth. The photo sites are way bigger than the it's the same argument compared to full frame to Micro Four Thirds or APS-C. It's the same argument all along, but people just keep arguing without having to appreciate the benefits. And I think you really have to dig deep. Why did they invent Four Thirds sensors in the first place? Why did they invent APS-C? Why did they invent full frame? Why did they invent medium format? We all have a place in the photographic industry because they all have their own benefits. You can't have one format satisfy everything, right? You can't. Even no matter how people are saying how superior full frame is nowadays, there's a reason why people are still like high-end commercial photographers still using medium format. It's slow as hell. It's taking 3 frames per second. There's no buffer. It's huge and bulky, and all that stuff that you know about. But the thing is, the files are definitely gorgeous. The color depth, like I mentioned, is way superior. The tonality is very smooth, and it's everything into the ultimate image quality. The medium format is still the way to go. But then again, the medium format isn't portable, is slow, is expensive, and so that's why there are different formats exist, is to address the deficiency of each of the formats. And full frame has its own downside as well. I mean, they are still very expensive compared to smaller formats. They're bigger, they're still heavier, and you can argue that it's probably the most versatile format because it can kind of do a little bit of the medium format and a little bit of the smaller format. But the smaller format would trump them in terms of ultimate portabilities and size and weight and everything like that. So like, there is definitely a place for everybody to exist, and I wouldn't, go as far as the full frame is the format forever. People should concentrate on the full frame, and that's it. And this is what Tonei is saying, isn't it? Basically, that the full frame is the format to go to, and all the f.95 lenses is the best lenses ever. The ultra shallow depth of field, is out of this world. That's why all his videos are becoming like, just you can only see his nose and nothing else. And then, right. Brad, easier not to compare anyway, and use the equipment you have to make images, and find out the practical limits you hit and work around them, or buy better equipment to move the limits. Very wise word there, Brad, very wise word. That's what I always say to them. A good photographer can use any gear to make photographs. You will hit a technological limit, you will hit some limits, but then again, if you know those limits, you can still create photographs based on those limits. And then, like you said, if you really want to exceed those limits, you have to invest in a separate system or buy better gears. And very, very true. I think that is a very, very wise word there, Brad. And okay, oh, Calvin's here. Hello, Calvin. And no, you don't have to say sorry. It's all good. I'm live here, and also that you can always scroll back and watch the whole thing, so it's not too bad. So, oh yeah, based on the argument, you're quite right, Roman. The f1 medium format lens will become a 0.65 on the full frame. It is kind of funny, right? If whoever left those messages in my channel message, and yeah, they basically can say that full frame will have a 0.95 or 0.65 in that case. So that it's kind of that argument, right? If you're saying that we are the smaller, we are inferior, and that means that your full frame is basically rubbish compared to medium format. But it isn't the case, though, isn't it? If you truly understand the whole thing, then you wouldn't have said it in the first place. Absolutely, mate, Terry. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to change this title now because there is no aperture equivalence there. There is no, because like from now on, you understand aperture now, and the reason that I said there's no aperture equivalence is because there isn't. Just re-educate yourself now. F1 lens is an F1 lens regardless of format. It's F1 in medium format. It is F1 in the exposure calculation. F1 on a full frame is the same. APS-C the same. Micro Four Thirds is the same. The calculating exposures is exactly the same. The really difference is the aesthetical elements of it. You will get shallow depth, you will get less depth of field from the smaller format compared to full frame, but equally, the full frame will have also less depth of field compared to medium format. It's the same thing. And but I have to say that stress once again that it's more complicated than that if you don't understand it. Like I mentioned earlier to you, Terry, is that the 50mm lens is a 50mm lens. You can't really compare a 50mm lens on a full frame to a 25mm lens on a Micro Four Thirds. It doesn't work like that because it is different. They are 50mm lens. It is not. It's not a 25mm. You have to compare 25 to 25. That's a more fair comparison. And you just have to work out how you're going to create the same image by using a high megapixel count camera and to compensate and to look at the detail of it. But I may try to do a comparison because I do have some full frame cameras here, so I can probably maybe shot a couple of pictures and then trying to crop it in. So it may not be in the same pixel, but you can see the effect of the depth of field and also the compression from the photograph. So hopefully that will give you a better idea or fairer comparison and then in that case you understand a little bit more about what I just said earlier. So that should be okay. So let me try to do that over the weekend and see whether I can do that, and I can show you guys next week, and that will be quite cool, right? And but that's what it is. There is no aperture equivalence there. People keep saying that your Micro Four Thirds 2.8 lens is a 5.6, and I really hate that. You know, like just get me frustrated every single time. No, it is a 2.8 bloody hell. I mean, it's really 2.8 lens. Don't keep saying 5.6, mate. It's not. It's definitely not 5.6 lens. It's a 2.8. That's how I calculate exposures. We use the same ISO, same shutter speed, and everything is the same. You know, just because our images look slightly different to yours doesn't mean that we don't have the same light gathering capabilities. Okay, people like Tonay afford a $17,000 lens and pay one person to carry one lens around. So for 5 extra lenses, you have to pay 5 people to carry your lenses when traveling. I always like your comments, Roman. Just makes me laugh. And right, Terry said, I'm waiting for the 300mm f11 Micro Four lens with the size of a pencil. Right, good argument, very good argument. If you want ultimate small lenses, let's wait for someone to invent a f11 Micro Four Thirds lens. How's that? That's gonna be a really teeny, tiny thing. But then again, you have to shoot like ultra high ISO all the time. And yeah, you know what? If you look at a lot of the film photography, a lot of the old classic photos, yeah, I'm talking about like way back in the 1930s and 1960s. So not even the 60s, 1920s and 1930s. Look at those large format camera, not even medium format, those really big wooden box camera. Look at those photos, just have a look at them. Google around, just have a look at them quickly, and you will find out the depth of field was so shallow because even they actually stopped down to f32. In those cases, back in them days, you know, the film was very slow. That's why they have to, the subject will have to sit on the chair for like 15 minutes to take a photograph, because the film at the time, the technology was very slow. So they're using ISO 25, ISO 8 in equivalent, because I think they call it slightly differently back then. And it's very, very slow film. And but because of the large format, they have such a shallow depth of field, and they knew it as a photographer, so they always stop down to f32. So that means to expose a photograph, they need an extreme long time to do it. So they will ask the subject to really stay very, very still to do something. And you can see that even that stop down to f32, they still get a very, very shallow depth of field. So, and that's why a lot of these old large format lenses, they can stop the aperture all the way down to 64. You know, like imagine, we don't see f64 these days on our cameras because we don't need to. And so it's something that people really didn't see a lot of the history and the sort of development of lenses and how we became what we are today. And obviously, like I mentioned, there are the depth of field is to use expressed for expressions in photography, not so much about blurring the background. I mean, this is always a subjective methods and also preferences, but to me, you should use bokeh and shallow depth of field or depth of field in general for creative purposes, not just to blur the hell out of everything just for the sake of it, just because I have a 1.2 lens or I have a f1 lens or 0.95 lens. I don't even think about that. I more think about, you know, what I want to achieve in the first place. If I want to separate subject and background, sure, I'll do it. But most of the cases I don't. You know, I just need to figure out, you know, what I need to do in terms of aperture sizes. I don't shoot 1.2 all the time. If I don't, even though I have 1.2 lenses, sometimes I stop down to 2.8, 5.6, even 6.3. You know, it just really depends. The reason why you can change aperture is for that particular reasons. You know, like otherwise, if everybody buy 1.2 lenses just to shoot exclusively at 1.2, they might as well just don't bother having aperture blades. Just having the big circle 1.2. That's it. You can't even change the aperture size. Just let you shoot 1.2 all day long. The reason they have that is because for any lenses, for any genuine photographer, you know how to execute a photograph by setting the correct f-stop and the correct shutter speed to achieve the aesthetic and also exposures as you wish, you know, based on your vision of the photograph, right? That's really the message there. Okay, let's see if anybody else have any other comments right here. And you pay your money and you make your choice. You do. But I would not pay $2,000 for an f11 lens, that's for sure. Even if it's 1,000, I still wouldn't pay for an f11 lens. even 500, I probably still wouldn't pay for a f11 lens. And I think they are. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say further, about Canon's decision, but it is what it is. They really decided to have f11, f8 lenses coming out in the near future for the R system. I'm pretty sure there will be people buying it. I'm pretty sure people will praise them. I'm pretty sure they will, because they are such a big company, and they're very easy to influencing people. Especially now they have Tone, and now even DP Review is doing something similar. So come on, please, not Chris and Jordan. I do respect them, and why? I just really don't understand. Seriously. Okay, and aperture lower, wider than f1 presumably give less and less chance of vignette when filters are added, and super large movement from iris. Yeah, and Dale, I bet the lens your son had yesterday is better than f11 lenses. Oh, that little tube thing. Yes, of course. That's probably f11 too. Yes, I'm pretty sure that is. You saw that yesterday. That's good, though. Roman, I wonder why people have much better gear in the 1920s and 50s are not famous for their pictures as the master in those days. It's a weird world back in the days, though. You think about it. There were a lot of professional photographers who make a living from taking photographs of people, but in terms of artists, there aren't many real genuine artists out there. And to be frank, what a lot of the old masters used to do, they didn't think that they would become a master for what they did, and that's probably it. Like Henri Cartier-Bresson, who kind of almost invented the street photography. He was just interested in taking photograph of people out there, and would he think that he would become the godfather of street photography? Probably not. And then the reason why he also uses 35 millimeters is all because of the portability. Because back in them days, with people still using 120 TLRs, large format cameras, and so he can't really use those cameras on the street. He needs something really portable, really discreet, and he can move around in the city all day long. And the 35mm is the tool for him. So he didn't really think about a lot of things. He just did what he did because he enjoyed doing them. And this is exactly what we should be doing as a photographer. Find out exactly what you want to do and just keep on doing it. And instead of thinking that I should be a street photography master one day, I should be this one day, I don't think you should be worrying about that. Just concentrate and focusing whatever you enjoy doing and keep doing it and get better at it. And that's it. And one day your work will be noticed because you keep on doing exactly what you love and passion. It will show those passion, and that's. This is what I always tell to people who kind of come to my workshops and talk to me about my inspirations and things like that. I said, look, you can come to learn. I show you the door exactly what you need to do to become this and that, but ultimately it's your choice. You decide exactly what you want to become as a photographer, what you want to do, what you're interested in, and keep focusing in that area and get better at it. Keep shooting, don't stop, and get inspiration from those similar things. Throughout the entire journey that you're making. Is going to be fun. It's going to be fun, but it's going to be hard work if you want to become really, really good. You can't stop. You just have to keep doing it, keep practicing it. But once you reach there, once you become whoever you wanted to be as a photographer, I'm pretty sure you're going to be very proud, very, very, very happy about everything that you have achieved. It's a long journey, like I said. And I spent a long time doing photography. I spent a lot of effort, even when a lot of people tell like basically a lot of negatives towards me. But I kept believing what I believe. I just keep moving forward. You can probably sense my passion there. It's just the way I am. If I believe in something, I would just keep on moving it. I just don't trying to get distracted by other things. And but this is cool. This is what everybody should be. If you enjoy something, like I said, I don't try to make enemies of anyone. I hate doing that. I try to be gentle, try to be a nice person to anybody who wants to talk to me. I never really try to discriminate anybody, and so it's fine for me. If people don't think that way, I'm always okay. That's you're entitled to your opinion, and I am who I am. I just like to use whatever I use. And you have your opinion, if that's okay. But ultimately, I'm a photographer. You want to talk about photography, I don't really care. You want to use Michael Four Third, you will full frame, APS-C, medium format, whatever. You know, I don't care. I just want to talk about photography. Good stuff there. And oh, Vicky is here as well. Hello, Vicky. Morning. You were there yesterday and you're here today. But you're only here briefly, though, and you didn't really leave me any messages. And more Tone, the better. The best Tone is camera conspiracies. I love that dude, man. That dude is funny. A lot of the stuff that he talked about is actually quite valid, and I have to give him that. It's really cool. He's not really a photographer. He's not really a videographer, but it's quite good that he does what he does, because he's, at least for now, I mean, I'm not sure, because when people get famous, when people get a bit more influencing power, they're starting to act a little bit weird. That's how I would put it. You know, you can see the likes of Tone, you know, like a good example. You know, like I said, I used to respect them really a lot. I look up to them as a channel. I learned a lot from them as well in the past about different formats and things. But the thing is, you know, they are now bigger. They are now much bigger now. They are now become definitely not unbiased anymore. They are definitely biased to certain things, and you can really tell from all the videos. It's just to me that, you know, why people would change suddenly, you know, just like that, is beyond me, you know. And I hope DP Review is that is just a one-off video, to be quite honest, because I do have a lot of respect to Chris and Jordan, and I met them before. It's really nice guys there. They're really cool people. But yeah, I'm just really hoping that it's just a one-off video. It kind of put me off a little bit, but you know, in general, they're still very unbiased when it comes to comparisons and reviews and things like that. So yeah, I'm really genuinely hope that is just a one-off video that I didn't like. Okay, and one advantage of F11 is that you can step down to F36. You get a nice starlight. Yeah, you're probably right there, but that lens, these two lenses, the F11 lenses, are like 600 and 800 millimeter lenses, and I don't know how much you can do with that sort of focal length in terms of getting nice starlight lights. It's got to be very narrow. You're probably just shooting a light bulb for having this starburst coming out. It's such a shallow, I mean, just a very, not shallow, I mean the angle of view is so narrow that it's got to be very difficult to do anything apart from shooting birds and wildlife, to be quite honest. You're usually asleep, but I spend evening until 4 a.m. at my gallery. Oh, ooh, wow. Oh, are you in America now, Vicky? Okay, cool. That's nice. That's nice to hear. Right. Okay. Good stuff. And I think I caught up with all the messages here. So that's probably it. Let me see if I missed anything. And Roman does have another message here that if I missed it earlier. So if I blur everything in my image, am I a great photographer? I can do even with f22. So just blur means quality. To a lot of people, possibly, you know, like if you go onto some of the Facebook groups, I'm guarantee you'll find some images that people just blur everything out just because they want to appreciate the bokehable. I can guarantee you'll find them. And that's what people like these days, frankly. You know, they just want to see the ball in the photograph, you know, regardless what it is. They just want to see, oh, look at that ball, it's so round. Look at that, oh, look at that softness, that creaminess in the thing, you know. And I'm in a way, you know, Kai is another guy that I really like. You know, I think he's a genius in as a presenter, as a reviewer. He's a genius. But he started all these Bokalicious things, you know, and he started when he was still with what's the Hong Kong company. I can't remember now. Something. But anyway, that was him, and he really started this bokeh thing and start talking a lot about bokeh. And he kind of started a whole misconception about the bigger the bokeh ball, the better the whatever. It just completely distracted from the artistic elements of what it is supposedly. And I guess, you know, and he did it because he was kind of like an entertainer at the time. You can kind of tell me, I used to laugh as whenever I see his videos. I just find it's very funny. I just love his videos, and for that purpose. But because I'm already a photographer, I just kind of think that, you know, You really should at least have some sort of educational elements there. Not just keep on talking about bokeh issues and bokeh this and bokeh there. You kind of really started the whole thing. Everybody's now really just purely just looking bokeh, nothing else. The shallower the depth of field, the better. Regardless of the price, yeah. Even the people have to chop a leg off to buy a lens, they would because I want to get that bokeh. I want to get that 0.01 millimeters depth of field. Like this is what they want these days. But they really completely ignoring the fact that it don't need those stuff in photography. Only in certain circumstances you may want to have that. But if you look into the history of photography, before like 1980s or even 1990s, yeah, nobody ever talked about bokeh, and they were really the byproduct of the ultra fast lenses, which allow those photographers to shoot in low light. Because don't forget, in the film days, people only shoot at ISO 400, 800, 1600 in most in rare cases, and so they need these 1.2, 1.4 lenses just to allow them to capture things in low light. Not about separations, not about that at all. They really just think about how can I capture the photos. Obviously, there is a little bit elements about separation, but not to an extent that I want to show the bokeh ball or having this ultra shallow depth of field and things like that. So this is something that totally changed since about 2000, since about digital photography. So now obviously people have a totally different perceptions about bokeh balls and depth of field. Even now our smartphone has fake bokehs and things like that now. Obviously this is what sells. Full stop. This is what sells, right? And even like a lot of people will talk about Micro Four Thirds should have some 0.5 aperture, 0.05 f-stop lenses, because that will give you equivalent of an f1 bokeh balls. But don't forget you have a 0.5 lens. Yeah, it's going to be massive, going to be huge to do that. Whether you want to sacrifice portability for that, I'm not entirely sure. For professional work, I can see maybe it doesn't appeal, especially for me that I shoot low light a lot for my job, and but I don't think people should use it as an excuse to get better bokeh ball or shallow depth of field. If that really is your ultimate reasons, obviously that Micro Four Thirds may not be your option. But for everybody who really want to capture something really cool, having the weight saving to go out and enjoy themselves, or either a holiday or just trekking in general, or shooting something that is that you can't possibly do without having big budget or very strong physical body, then of course the Micro Four Thirds really is a very good alternative and option. So there we go, there is it. That's my today's stream, and hopefully that's bit oh, digital ref, that's it. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's all good stuff. Ansel Adam is turning in his grave, and the length he went on to great depth of field. Yeah, I think a lot of these photographers will probably be very disappointed to hear what we're saying these days, right? And there was a review on the with a full frame 24 1.4 test bokeh with a person standing in front of a wall. They were commenting about how good the background wall was out of focus. I kept thinking that why not get the person to take a step forward to get the same effect as slower, cheaper lens. I lost word for that, Terry. I lost word for that. Top photographers like Rankin and Leibovitz use phase 1 medium format and don't use narrow depth of field, and that is very true. If you look at Leibovitz's portraits, how often you see blur background? Not really. She actually stops down to f32 in a lot of cases and have a lot of different lights shaping the entire scene to do that photographs. And but that's art. That's art. She wants to see everything in the frame. She wants to see exactly the surrounding of the subject. This is what environmental portrait is. That's what portrait really is. It's not just about blurring the background. Depending on situations, of course, if you're shooting outside, if you've got a lot of distracting elements there, you may want to just separate it, having some isolation so you don't get distracted by some of the stuff behind the subject. But in most cases, if you can, you really should try to stop down a little bit and start to appreciate the subject's surrounding, and that's what a lot of the actual good portrait photographer does. Libovis is ranking definitely, you know, like they rarely use shallow depth of field in a lot of the portrait work. They set up multiple lights to shape the entire room, like the portrait that she did for the royal family is a very good example. So you can see that he's stopped down so much that lens, so you just capture everything in focus. But I think that looks grand. That you can just appreciate, you know, the whole environment, you know, the queen actually lives in. You know, that is what's supposed to be. Even if you just feel purely focusing on the queen, and then you blur everything on the background, we don't get that sense of, you know, the power behind. And so like you're having to see the exact surrounding. That's when you're starting to see, ooh, yeah, look at that. That's the palace. That is it, right? And I think really is something to be thinking. Just think deeper about aperture in general. So anyway, so today's topic is finished. No aperture equivalence, remember. F1 is F1, 1.2 is 1.2. There's no confusion there. Don't let everybody tell you that your lens is a 2.8. Your lens is a 5.6, not 2.8. Don't think like that. If they say that, you just ignore them. Don't even bother arguing them. You know, just that's my advice. Don't argue with them. Let them be confused. Continue to be confused, and that's it. You know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what you have. You have a good lens there. Just forget about what other people say. And that's all I want to say. Hopefully you can enjoy today's chat, and I'm pretty sure that you guys are going to enjoy this weekend. Hopefully have some good weather and you can go out and shoot something. I do have a parcel coming later on. Hopefully that I will be able to take some good photographs. I will be able to show you next week. Hopefully. Let's see what happened. And so good stuff there. Oh, Vicky's last message, and see my father took weeding on colored 4x5, cut film press and spent forever over the background. I bet he did. All right, okay guys, thank you very much for joining me once again. I really appreciate you supporting here. Always great to see people. Oh, you know, one thing I forgot to change is the date of my bottom banner. So like, God, how could I forget about that? So let me change it now. And even though that we only have a few seconds left, so this is the 3rd of July, not 2nd. I'm still living in yesterday. Okay, good stuff. And thank you for joining me. And you guys have a great, fantastic